And the oldest road network in humanity, the Peabiru Path, runs through Mato Grosso do Sul. Did you know that we have here in the state the oldest road route in humanity? That's right, the Peabiru Path runs through Mato Grosso do Sul. This path, the path of the Indians, connects the entire continent from the Pacific to the Atlantic. It passes through the city of Zigurates and is being revitalized. And we went there to get to know it. Who were the travelers that traveled the most ancient path of Mato Grosso do Sul? How far are the Peabiru roads interconnected with the rest of the world? And who would have built this road network? The group is heading out to the field once again. The research has been going on for over 20 years, but only now has it gained greater significance. The team of researchers, called Dakila, which means seekers of the self, is an point association that was born in Zigurates, the city located at the top of the Maracaju mountain range, attracting people from all over the world, in search of existential answers, health, and quality of life. Here, inside the laboratory, there is research on the influences of the South Atlantic anomaly, which is over Brazil, and it brings impacts of radiation on the Earth's electromagnetic field. And it also has effects on the physical and emotional well-being of people.
Bioenergetic. This field here is bioenergetic. These are electric and magnetic forces that can be affected. This is inside you, just like it's inside the planet. But on the planet, it's a different source. It's another way that this energy is created. Ours is biological. On the planet, it's chemical. There's a different formation of that energy, all of it.
Tourists also come to explore the Peabiru Path, which goes through the city of Zigurates. The team, made up of geographers and archaeologists, along with Randy Fernandez, the president of the group, retraces the path that exists in Rochedo, Mato Grosso do Sul. And it's also the same path that exists in other parts of the world. And they show it exclusively to our team. The term Peabiru comes from Tupi-Guarani and means compressed path. In the time of the indigenous people, it was meant to facilitate the exchange of goods. But, according to Randier, it was also oriented by the Milky Way, built under an electromagnetic grid, and could be seen from above. All the marks are observable from above. Just look at this big footprint on a rock, with the precision of the drone's image.
When the indigenous people appeared, these paths already existed, so they took advantage of it because they already had interconnections and also used it for cultural exchange of customs in general, the trade of seeds and other products. It changes everything. It changes the history of Brazil because when they arrived, the indigenous people were already there. So it wasn't a country that was inhabited, it was a continent. And before the indigenous people, there were already other civilizations who left these paths, but they call it the paths of the indigenous people, the paths of the Incas, because they were occupied by them. In reality, it was already much older.
Paths that would have been built, according to researchers, by a civilization prior to the Sumerians. This civilization would be the Morios, who were also used by the colonizers of Brazil and South America. The main route that connected Cusco, in Peru, to the Brazilian coast, at the height of the captaincy of São Vicente, now in the state of São Paulo. And it crossed all the territories of Bolivia, Brazil, Paraguay, a total of 3,000 kilometers.
Now they found everything pretty much ready. The trails, cities, and some monuments from all the continents already existed. But in Brazil, when they arrived here, the colonizers found it easy to enter South America because the paths already existed. They would just have to negotiate with the indigenous people to clear the way.
These were the names Gold Path, Sun Path, Emperor's Path, Troops Path, Jesuit Path, connecting the Atlantic to the Pacific. In Peru, the Inca Trail leads to Machu Picchu. In Brazil, it was called the Indian Path because they indicated to the crown how to access the territory and the mines. In exchange for objects, it was during these expeditions that researchers found the Pezão in this place, which looks like an archipelago of stones. It is located in the municipality of Paranita in Mato Grosso.
Other ethnicities, other civilizations that are much older, because the indigenous people don't work with stones, they don't have tools to shape or cut stones. The issue is bow and arrow and hunting, so they already arrived to occupy a territory that already existed. For example, the pyramids, the stepped monuments or not, are from civilizations that predate the indigenous people. The indigenous people came from the time of the first flood. It's what remains of humanity. So they lived in caves and everything else. Now they found everything pretty much ready. The legend of the treasure, the buried pot of gold, runs wild. Did you see then? The story is long, but it's all because of colonization. This time is much earlier. The indigenous people inhabited what we call the Peabiru Path, or the Indian Path, or the Path of the Indians, let's say about 7,000 to 10,000 years ago, at least that much.
The Camino de Santiago de Compostela would also be traversed by the Peabiru Path, passing through France, Portugal, and Spain. 500,000 people visit this place each year. And Brazil has thousands of routes. In the state of São Paulo, in Barra de Ararapira, at the Ilha do Cardoso State Park, researchers found a path that was once submerged by the Atlantic Ocean and leads towards two islands. In Mato Grosso do Sul, specifically in Rochedo, it goes over the Serra.
It has a huge visual range, spanning kilometers and kilometers. This favors territorial control and also communication, because here you could light a bonfire and be seen from very far away. And this other point is to light another bonfire, thus replicating the communication. It's a way that we identify as a possibility. From this location, it has already been used in addition to the material traces that we found throughout the region. So we are indicating, are there strong signs that this Peabiru path passed through here, mainly through this hilly region?
Based on the research, you can place it much more than 10,000 years ago. It's little, from what we've researched, the objects we've found, not just here, but in various parts of the world that we've already visited. And we had the opportunity to see what other teams are also finding there in terms of objects. These are of a civilization much older than what we know today.
A little further ahead, signs and marks made on the rock. These circles always together in groups of 3, representing the perfect number in universal mathematics.
All the marks we are going to check, they all have a tripod. They form a tripod, a triangle. So this triangulation, they considered it like an ABC, like Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, as if it were the divine, like energies of polarities, positive, negative, and neutral. So for us, in our research, we saw that there was an intervention perhaps from a much more advanced civilization with a much more sophisticated technology that caused these marks below relief to leave for later, for people to make an appreciation or a study. So it wouldn't be the work of nature. There are other marks that occur.
The perfect cut here is hard to notice. It can't be marked by water or anything because it looks like it was cut with the same precision.
Yes, it looks like it was cut. And there are other machines that are much more sophisticated in a symmetry, so we can go to others. There, to see that it doesn't belong to a work of nature, like someone just rubbing a stone here, scratching, marking, so it's much more elaborate.
We can easily differentiate the two marks. These mysterious marks, let's put it this way. They are the circles and the watermarks. This here is the watermark from the natural deterioration process of the rock. This is due to the rain and the drought.
Travelers marked this territory to leave a reference for other people who would pass through here, and also to indicate that this was the Peabiru Path. A little further ahead, the water was used to cool off, drink, and heal possible wounds. Also, 3 lagoons that don't dry up, even during periods of severe drought. Even that, a water resource was identified, over an aquifer.
This water is not dry. These 3 craters, one here, 2 over there, always have water. Now it's a time of really severe drought. The stagnant rivers are all completely dry, and here, oh, there is water. And it empties out, and the next day it's full again, both this one and the other 2 craters. And they follow the symmetry of the marks we just saw earlier. So, there are 2 and a third one, forming a triangulation. So we have 2 craters over there, and a third one here, as if it were a macro triangulation. And over there, a micro one. So this triangulation follows a certain electromagnetic frequency, a symmetry not just in the material form, but in the energetic form as well.
And here, the path itself over the Serra de Maracaju. In this section, it's dirt, but there are places that have been built with stones and also with grass. What can we say about this sliced stone? In many places, the team identified markers, like this section that indicates a path leading to the Amazon and another to Bolivia. And it starts here from Rochedo.
The indicator of the path, the right branch, goes to Corumbá, Bolivia, Paraguay. The left branch leads to our paths that reach the Amazon.
It is believed that some unknown technology would have cut these stones.
This stone, the technology used to cut this stone, is the same technology that we see, for example, in Egypt when they cut the stones for the pyramids. We see, for example, in some rock engravings. At Pedra do Inga, it's an example where we can also see those perfect stone carvings. And you don't know how they were made. For example, Machu Picchu, Ollantaytambo, which is also in Peru, has those exact cuts. You can't even fit a needle through those cuts. So it's the same technology that was used to cut this stone.
We followed the path in search of more evidence and arrived at the caves in the Rochedo region. Some marks in the cavities. The archaeologists on the team have already identified rock records from prehistory. The Peabiru Path passes right here. The light is fading, night is coming, and the travelers of that time needed a shelter to spend the night. They found this rest in this cave. The researchers found artifacts from the A stone, age, and also from agriculture. We're talking about 4,000 years before Christ, and now this area is completely isolated to preserve this site. From agriculture? We're talking about 4,000 years before Christ, and now this area is completely isolated to preserve this site.
We are safeguarding the heritage, protecting the entrances of the cavities that are part of this property. We are keeping the archaeological material protected so that tourists don't collect or take anything away, and educating a good part of the tourist groups that come here about the need to always protect and avoid risking the walls. And if you identify anything, please report it.
The partnership between the DakilaPesquisas Association and the São Paulo State Tourism Department authorized research in the region, and research is a way to protect and safeguard these paths. That only in the state of São Paulo there are 5,000 kilometers and it spans 25 cities. Drone with American technology valued at $500,000 reais. It can accurately identify changes in the rocks without deforesting the vegetation. The work can even be done at night. The result is these images on the computer. This is the area with vegetation. This is already the image from the drone without the vegetation.
Here, everything is trails. This is a trail, and up here is a trail.
If we were to look for these patterns here without technology, it could take us a lifetime. Maybe we wouldn't even be able to find these patterns. With technology, a job that could take a long time, 20, 30 years, or maybe not even happen, it was done in less than half an hour. So, you identify the patterns through the image. This here is a dense forest. We identified the patterns through the image and went straight to the point. In less than half an hour, the 4 sites were already located and documented.
On this table is the result of over 20 years of research. All the material collected and cataloged registered with IFAM was found on roads and inside caves. It was kept for protection.
None of what is here was excavated. Nothing was taken, nothing was bought. This technology is very similar, probably the same as the technology the Incas used. Since we are on the Peabiru route, we are estimating and suggesting that this is a technological exchange between the populations that lived here and those that lived in Peru. No one would carry a stone like this on their back and travel the world, but the technology traveled with each person. And in cultural exchanges, in meetings, one person would explain to another how they could crush a grain, how to store the grain, to prepare food, to handle some type of medicine. So these objects follow the same trend in various places around the world.
Some materials even date back to the colonial period.
This artifact was found by neighbors in a nearby cave, about 8 kilometers from here. And there are several artifacts from that time. Colonial Brazil. So, the materials are gold, Nordic, aluminum, zinc, and copper. In colonial Brazil, they generally use this as a coat of arms to impose respect as a sign of peace or war. It's really about knowing the intention of the gentlemen or the bandeirantes who were arriving.
All the material will be part of a technical reserve.
So we are using our own resources, together with all the associates, bringing this effort to light and also partnering with other professionals to engage the Brazilian population, to show the world that the history of Brazil is much richer and goes back much further than what is commonly said. It will definitely help to rewrite the history of Brazil, or to complement the story of the discovery of Brazil, because all this material here, except for this one, shows that it dates back long before colonial Brazil. All of this here already had an occupation. So it means that the history isn't told in a very real way, very faithfully. So it's been told from a certain time onward, from the year 1500 onward. Now before that, it was already colonized, it was already populated. And what exists in Brazil? In terms of archaeology, I would place Brazil as the first in the world in terms of archaeological discoveries. The revelation of astronomical observatories made of stones or through other monuments. So all of this won't be lost because most of it is being buried, is being taken away, although from Brazil by other non-national institutions. And all the wealth ends up in the hands of people who are not Brazilian. In reality, the arsenal, the legacy is here.